Path of Exile 2 is probably the most anticipated game for me for a very long time. In fact, from its original announcement, I've been really just excited about seeing what this game will do. Now, the changes that have been happening with that game have been pretty insane. Going from, hey, this is going to be an expansion to the original game, into now this is going to be its own game that you can log into from Path of Exile. And then now really just, hey, this is so incredibly different that maybe you might not even kind of like it. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, basically, they have really slowed down from what it looks like to be a lot of the combat mechanics and the encounters. You can't just rush bosses anymore. If you die at a boss, you have to redo that boss again from the very beginning. They've added a dodge mechanic. They've added gold to the actual game as well. So all of these different changes have been happening around the periphery with this game, and it's really interesting to see how it's actually going to probably divide the community, in my opinion, down the middle. And what really has been kind of divisive for me lately isn't just the fact that things are definitely changing for Path of Exile 2, hopefully in the good way, but the fact that they are now pushing a far more console-like focus rather than just trying to have a PC-like focus from the very beginning. Now, that's not all bad entirely, to be honest, because Path of Exile 1 is already on consoles right now. However, though, the push for it can really just be concerning to a lot of people that prefer a lot of great mechanical depth, and even the ability to avoid the words of like accessibility or greater audience, which really means just we're going to simplify things and make them dumber. Honestly, I don't think that PoE 2 is going to be simplified or dumber. Well, think of it like this. I really feel like PoE 2 is going to be simplified in the right ways, not so much having these convoluted mechanics or these quality of life features that just make things harder for the player rather than just enjoying the actual depth of the game itself, whether through crafting, through mapping, endgame, and etc. So the quality of life features like we saw in the Necropolis patch in PoE 1 could be a good signifier of what we're going to see in Path of Exile 2. However, though, like I said before, the push for actual console gameplay and the fact that they are really pushing controllers for this game is something that I feel could almost rear its ugly head. Now, I'm an old man. I've played games for a very long time. I'm 41, and I've played ARPGs since the very beginning. In fact, since I was in my early teens. So I'm very used to just clicking the mouse and going from there. I don't really play a lot of games with WASD. So seeing the actual change and seeing how it could be different from what I'm normally used to could be a bad thing. Well, for me, that doesn't mean it's going to be a bad thing in general though, because I decided to take it upon myself to go ahead and try Path of Exile with a controller. And let me tell you, it's not good. Trying to play this game with a controller is really just an exercise in frustration. I just wanted to jump in game and show you exactly what happens when you try to play PoE 1 with a controller. It's honestly not a great system. So let's take a look here. If I wanted to go ahead and do some mapping and I go over to my maps, I then have to jump into the actual setup, put that in my inventory, go here, apply the map to the actual map device. But if I want to change the actual atlas trees, I then have to press both LT and RT in this direction, which is okay, not too bad. But then if I want to choose between like Eater of Worlds, Siri Exarch, or Maven, I then have to hold the left stick and then hit LT or RT and then do that direction. It just feels like there's so many more combinations of buttons to press when you're doing this that it doesn't feel like a fun way of doing things, especially if you're looking at things just like your passive skill tree. Everything comes in this way and you have to sort of like move everything around. Trying to search for something is the left stick and the left D-pad, which then helps you bring up the actual menu, and you can actually type something in depending upon the overlay that you have with your actual game. It didn't show up here because we're on the PC, but it just, the combinations of keys that you would use to then actually play this game don't feel right. On top of that, the stats pages don't look correct. Like there's the information that you would normally get, like even the UI itself where it says character is totally not placed correctly, and even things like the atlas isn't written right. Small little details that really don't fit. It's almost as if they just took the actual UI from PoE 1 and then said, hey, how can we quickly apply a controller layout to this game? So as you can see, if you are a console player for PoE 1, which honestly there are quite a few, the experience for yourself is not actually that great. but the actual push that GGG has been having to make the console experience better, or even a controller experience for the actual PC player, really is a good thing. Now, I've been trying to test whether or not I'd enjoy this kind of concept. I've been playing Last Epoch, Torchlight Infinite, as well as Diablo 4 with a controller specifically, and honestly, the experience hasn't been that bad. It's actually been kind of okay. So I can understand the idea of like, hey, let's go ahead and make a controller option for this game. My biggest concern though is that because we are going to be using a controller rather than a mouse and keyboard, are certain things like boss fights going to have to be tuned down because of the actual input that is going to be needed for PoE 2, or certain things like specific abilities that won't be available to use because the controller is not as precise as a mouse is directly, especially in a top-down ARPG. I know this seems like more of like old man yells at cloud kind of thing, but really I just want to make sure that when PoE 2 finally comes out, we have the experience that we're looking for. I know the game's going to be divisive across the board, especially with current streamers and the 0.1% of players comparative to what everybody else is normally used to, and games do have to in fact evolve. But what I really don't want to have happen is for PoE 2 to lose the thing that made PoE 1 so great. Its depth, its complexity, the ability to go through and just break the game outright, having a phenomenal endgame system, and really just having the ability to make any kind of character viable. Now, depending upon how many divines that character costs is a whole other story, but you can basically make anything viable if you want to. But something stuck out to me after watching the Path of Exile 2 console deep dive, and listen to this.
So the addition of Couch Co-op was initially a bit of an experiment at first, and then we started to expand on it. We introduced like separate HUDs for each of the characters, and then once we got the camera system working with two characters, it really started to kind of come together and play really nicely. So then we expanded on that by providing Couch Co-op players with panel versions of the full screen menus that I've spoken about, which allowed us to have like simultaneous play with regards to inventory management and adjusting your passive skill tree and stuff like that.
Implementing couch co-op is honestly going to be a phenomenal thing to do. I mean, you can just imagine the streams with Ziz and Steel Mage basically just playing the game together, a console, and trying to just run really high-tiered maps. That would be an exciting thing to do. Or having things like gauntlets being run with PoE content creators on the couch through co-op in that direction. Now, these are just really funny ideas that I have off the top of my head. Seeing other PoE content creators like this play together with co-op and having maps being rolled by the community and having them do it live on the couch would be a really fun thing to do. You can steal my idea, guys. It's perfectly fine. Go ahead, do it. But the thing is, though, my concern with all of that is the fact that because we are running on a controller, what are we going to be seeing in terms of actual gameplay? And will the actual game suffer for mouse and keyboard users, or even those that are more classical like me, because of the fact that we are not implementing WASD or even controller support in a more upfront type of manner? This is coming from, of course, like I said before, an old man yells at cloud kind of a thing. But it still brings up those specific concerns as someone who's played this game for 10 plus years. I really think though that GGG, even though they've made mistakes before, even though we have Quinn69 screaming at them to fix their game, the thing is, I really feel like these developers and these teams really in fact do play their own games, unlike other developers. Yeah, I'm looking at you. And even though this may bring up some concerns for myself as a classical PoE player, that maybe things are going to be okay. Because even if things aren't right in the beginning when they first come out, because I feel like PoE 2 is going to have those beginning problems when it first releases, like every game normally does, I feel like GGG will in fact try to go through and fix those problems as quickly as possible. My only concern, like I said, is for the depth of mechanics and complexity to still be a part of Path of Exile 2, and hopefully, maybe possibly even fix melee. That'd be nice. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think that PoE 2 focusing so heavily on consoles will negatively impact the game? Or are you just going to call me an old man yelling at a cloud? Really, either one is perfectly fine. I just hope PoE 2 is a phenomenal game to play. Now, if you like these sort of hot takes about Path of Exile, Diablo, Last Epoch, and other ARPGs, subscribe to the channel. We are getting close to 600 subs, and I just want to say thank you guys so very much. I did not expect the channel to grow this quickly, so thank you guys once again. We are going to be uploading as much as I possibly can because this is more of like a side project for me and more of like a passion project. But with all that being said, though, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you next time.